Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh, everybody. Bismillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. This is day 2 of our discussions about how to study Arabic effectively. Once again, I'm going to pretend that all of you are students sitting in my classroom, and I'm giving you an orientation on how to study Arabic, right? And last time I spoke to you about the 3 different kinds of Arabic: classical, standard, and spoken Arabic. Those of you that are following me on Instagram right now, the first session is on my Facebook page, so you can catch it there. And if you don't have Facebook, inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un, too bad for you. But so in this session too, I'm going to talk to you about, we're zoning in on studying the Arabic for the purpose of understanding the Quran. And just so everybody again has a heads up, I'll try to keep these sessions shorter than 20 minutes, between 10 and 20 minutes at the most, okay? Because I do want you to remember some of these things that I'm sharing with you. This is not relevant maybe for everybody, but those of you that are interested in learning Arabic to help you understand the Quran, I think you'll find this discussion beneficial. Okay, so when it comes to learning any language, you want to be able to acquire 4 skills, okay? Any language that you're good at, you want to be able to say, I have 4 skills in that language. Those skills are reading, writing, listening, and speaking. I'll say that again: reading, writing, listening, and speaking. And the way to organize those skills, like when you go to I used to study Spanish in high school, and I'm trying to learn some Turkish now. And at one point or another, I've tried to learn several other different languages. When you go to a language class, your professor, your teacher will get you to say something, speaking. They'll get you to say, my name is this, or here's how you say hello, or here's how you say welcome, or here's how you say good evening, etc., right? That's speaking. They'll try to introduce you to the alphabet of that language. That's writing, obviously. They'll say something and expect that you understand what they said. That's listening, right? And then, of course, they'll put words on the board or in your textbook, and they'll expect you to read it in that language the way it's supposed to be pronounced. That's reading. I want you to take those 4 skills: reading, writing, speaking, and listening, and restructure them, reorganize them in your mind. Again, we're learning not Spanish or German or French. Actually, we're not even learning Arabic for a general purpose. We're learning Arabic to understand the Quran. It's a very specific purpose. Our entire study of the language is focused primarily first on a book, and then everything else in that language. That's secondary to us, right? If that's the case, then of those 4 skills, 2 skills become less important. In the beginning, at least anyway, they become less important. So speaking becomes less important, and writing becomes less important, because for the average Muslim who just wants to understand the Quran, they're not going to sit there and write Surah Al-Baqarah. They're going to read it. They're not going to write it. And even if they never learned how to write it properly, it wouldn't make a difference. They're not interested in writing first. They're interested in understanding first. So writing is not a top priority if you're studying Arabic for the purpose of the Quran, especially those of you that are trying to study this part-time. You have limited time to study anyway, and you want to make the most of every minute of effort you're going to put in to learn. Why would you spend time learning and prioritizing something that won't take you to your immediate goal, right? So writing is basically, you put an X on it in the beginning. We're not going to focus on writing. The same thing about speaking. I mean, okay, you know now how to say that the weather is nice today, or it's sunny today. So what? Like, how is that going to help you understand when the Imam is reciting the prayer, or when you're reciting the Quran? So your speaking skills are about you producing language, you producing words, and you expressing yourself. It's not about understanding the Quran. So as an early skill set, even though in a normal Arabic classroom, or any foreign language classroom, these are like top priority skills. You start with these. Like, if you don't have this, what do you have? That kind of thing, And even if your friends say, hey, you're learning Arabic? Yeah, say something in Arabic. And you're like, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So it's not impressive. If you're not learning to speak, then you can't impress somebody else that you've learned a new language. But we're not learning this to impress anybody. We're learning this so that we understand the Quran. So we come back to that. I mentioned 4 skills at the top of this session. I've reduced it now to 2 skills. 2 skills are gone. Writing is gone for now, and speaking is gone for now. So what's left? What's left is reading and listening. Once again, what's left is reading and listening. Now, even within reading and listening, we'll prioritize. By the way, focusing on 2 skills is way easier than focusing on 4 skills, isn't it? Like, your work's already cut by half. That's already the case. And now, so you're already in a much easier position to be able to get to your goal and what you have to learn to get there, the road has been cut by several miles, so that's already motivating. But even within that, let's think about this. I like to think of reading and listening as input, like information is coming in and you're processing that information. For example, if I'm listening to Arabic, I'm trying to process that information that it goes through my ears, and my brain's trying to make sense of what's being said. The same way, if I'm reading, my eyes are taking these words and I'm trying to make sense of it in my head. That's input. But when you're speaking or writing, it's output. You're producing stuff, right? So for the purposes of understanding the text of the Quran, the sacred text, we're focused on input. We're focused primarily on input. Now, within input, one of them is a lot harder than the other. Listening is way harder than reading. Why? Because when the Imam starts reciting, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنا أعطيناك الكوثر, and they're not stopping for you and saying, Inna, by the way, do you know what Inna is? Let me tell you. That's the vocabulary. And let me slow you, because you're a new Arabic learner, so I'll recite extra slow for you. So I'll just say, Inna. Everybody got that? Okay. أعطيناك. You good? You good? Okay, I'll go with it. That's not going to happen. They're going to keep going. You're still stuck on the first word. They're done with the surah. Allahu Akbar. Listening requires that you have the ability to process what's being said quickly, and you're keeping up with what's being said. And that's going to be a lot harder skill to acquire. That's not going to come right away. But when you're reading something on your own, that's on your own pace. You're not dependent on the pace of another. If you're going to take 10 minutes to recite Surah Al-Fatiha, that's up to you, because it's on your terms. So starting from reading is actually way easier than starting from listening. We want to start from the reading and then build our way up all the way to listening. Listening is our goal, really. I mean, I want to get to the point where I'm listening to the Imam recite the Quran and I can just make total sense of it until the rak'ah comes to an end and I'm engaged with the words of Allah. That's a final skill. That's like when you've reached your goal, kind of. In your study of Arabic, that's a pretty major milestone. It's not the highest milestone, but it's a pretty major milestone when you can stand in prayer and understand even one phrase or two phrases. You can start picking things up. That's pretty cool. And, we can start getting there soon, but eventually you want to get to the point where anything you recite, maybe one or two words you're missing, and then you can look those up. Or you can ask the person who led the prayer, hey, what did you mean by, what word is that? What surah was that from? And you can find that out and build that vocab. In any case, so I've started with 4 skills, once again, because I want you to remember this stuff. We started with the output skills, writing and speaking, and we eliminated those for the purpose of Quran study. Then we talked about listening and reading, and we eliminated basically listening for now. We'll build it slowly, but reading is where we're going to focus. You're going to read the Quran and try to make sense of what you are reading. And that's cool. That's actually a pretty easy way to narrow down your focus. Okay, so that's the first and foremost part of the discussion today that I wanted to get out of the way. The second thing is clear objectives. Now that we're worried only about reading, let's get clear about our objectives. If you are someone, and I'm only going to talk about 3 groups today, right? And then we're going to be done with the session. First group, if you're somebody who knows absolutely zero about the Arabic language, you know nothing about the alphabet, you know nothing about, the pronunciation, you're absolutely zero. Okay, you know nothing. Or you're someone who used to know and now you've forgotten. Okay, now you don't remember what it was, or you read it so poorly you're almost embarrassed to read it in front of somebody else, right? Or even to yourself out loud, you feel hesitation in doing that. Then, and many of you, if that's the beginning level you're at, it's going to be hard for you to go to a masjid and sit down with a bunch of 11-year-olds and they're reading better than you are and you're sitting there embarrassing yourself. It's going to be hard, right? And where do you begin with that skill? I mean, you could maybe take a college course. College courses are pretty expensive. And also, when you go to a college course, they're not going to say, we're just going to focus on reading. They're going to say reading, writing, speaking, listening. There you go again. I'm focused on 4 skills where I needed to focus on 1. That's another problem. You could try to do this on your own, and that's going to be a challenge. And sometimes you try to do it with a tutor online. Many of you have tutors online, and for some of you it's a hit or a miss. Sometimes you make it, sometimes you don't, and sometimes they're pretty good. A lot of times because they're foreigners themselves, they want to take you on a pace that they're used to, or that they're used to teaching kids, and kids don't learn the same way as adults. Kids are sponges, they can pick things up quickly, but you're 35 years old, you're 27 years old. You're not going to be able to pick up as quickly as children, and now you start feeling inadequate and you get demotivated. I take you back to the first challenge. If you're not motivated, you're not going to learn. So I've put something together for those of you that are at this level that you can do, and I'll tell you that at the end, but for now I want to tell you any of the three groups that I talk about today. First of all, the first group is people that know absolutely zero. They don't know Arabic at all. The second group is someone who knows they know how to read, but they're not very fluently. So they've got some reading. Okay, they've got some reading. And the third group is they read okay. It's not perfect pronunciation, but you can basically read the Quran. Like many people from most parts of the Muslim world, they can read the Quran, but you don't understand what you're reading for the most part, or at all. Okay, so even though you can pronounce it, you can say it, you've even memorized some surahs, but you know nothing. Those are the three groups that we're trying to help out today with some tips. Okay, the first tip for all of you is you have different goals in front of you. You don't have the same goal, but for each of you, you cannot do this once a week. You just can't. If you do it once, if you get a tutor or you take a class and you're sitting there once a week, you've got 6 days to undo everything you did on day 1. And when you come to day 7, it's like you're restarting. And you're going to feel demotivated. And you're going to feel like you're not going anywhere. And it's going to take too long. And you can't do it every day because you're busy. You have a job, you have work, you have school, you have home obligations, you have all this stuff to take care of. So you can't do it full time either. So how in the world are you going to accomplish crossing that hurdle realistically while not having an ability to do this full time? Here's my recommendation. If you can dedicate 10 days, and I mean it, I've done this before, I've tried it before, I've experimented with several students. Yes, students are experimental subjects to me. If you can dedicate 10 days, 2 to 3 hours a day for 10 days, never more, never less. Just if you give me 2 hours, that's great. If you could do more than that, amazing. No more than 3 hours, okay? Then within 10 days, I can guarantee you can go from knowing zero about Arabic to starting to read the Quran in Arabic in 10 days. I know that sounds crazy, but you can do it. I can guarantee you. For second group, if you're reading not so much in flow, if you can give yourself 10 days and work with somebody individually, just reading. It's a muscle. You've already got the basic exercise. The basic muscle is there. You just need to strengthen it now. Within 10 days, your flow will be twice as better as it was 10 days ago. But you need a concentrated 10 days, no breaks, kind of an extreme routine. And after those 10 days, you can go to once a week. After that, you can go to twice a week, whatever. Like, you can lighten up your schedule. But you need a concentrated beginning. And by the way, the third group, you read the Quran, but you don't know what you're reading. You're like, how am I going to learn Arabic? The fundamentals of Arabic, you can learn in 10 days. The basics of Arabic, you can learn in 10 days. But if you spread that out, you're not going to remember. 10 concentrated days. For 10 days, I'm pretending I got nothing else going on in my life but this. That's it. And I'm not asking for 24 hours a day or 6 hours a day or 8 hours a day. It's 2 to 3 hours a day. That's all you need. The thing with, my 20 years of teaching Arabic, what I've learned with myself and my students is that Arabic studies, if you have like an extreme start, like a boost start, then everything else will start falling like dominoes. But if you have a slow start, you'll never really take off the ground. And so a lot of students, they go to a class 1, 2, 3, 4 sessions, 5 sessions in, they're feeling lost. They feel like they can't do it. Oh my God, there's 4 more months left. You're not getting to 4 months. You're just getting to 10 days. You could see the finish line. I'm going to get to my fundamentals in 10 days. I'm going to get to a major milestone in 10 days. I'm going to start reading Quran in 10 days. So for those of you that are reading absolutely zero, okay, those of you that are reading absolutely zero, and those of you that are reading at a very basic level, but you want to work on your pace, I don't want to reinvent the wheel. There's something that's been developed, that's been used for a long time. It's called Al-Qaida Nuraniya. There's PDFs available of it online. It's a free resource. It's taught to kids around the world, kids that know nothing about Arabic, from Turkey, from India, from Pakistan, from Bangladesh, from all over non-Arab speaking countries. These kids walk into a madrasa and they say, we want to have them memorize the Quran. Within the first month, they're reading Quran like flowing water, and then they start memorizing the Quran. they've got a machinery in place for non-Arabs to learn Arabic reading, and it works, so there's no need to reinvent it. There's no need to come up with some creative new method. The only thing is, how do you teach this to adults, right? So what I did was, a few years ago, I took a couple of students that were non-Arab, they were actually all American, and I taught them how to read the Quran in 10 days. They know zero about it, and I took them from zero to reading the Quran in the Arabic in 10 days through the Qaida Nuraniya. I've put that series up on Bayna TV. It's called the 10-Day Challenge. So for those of you that are not familiar with reading at all, that's where I want you to start. I want you to start with the 10-Day Challenge. Also want you to know, for those of you, any of you that can't afford a Bayna TV subscription, just ask for a gift subscription. We'll give you one for free. I don't care. Just get it and assign yourself those 10 days. My recommendation is start on a Friday, go to the Jummah prayer, ask Allah for extra help, start on a Friday evening, work your way through the next Sunday, and you've got those 10 days locked down, okay? That's what I'd like you to do. So that's for the first and the second group. The second group will go through that series faster than the first group, but it'll help your pace. As a matter of fact, even if you're reading not so much in flow, just going through the Qaida Nuraniya yourself a couple of times over again, with a little bit of help with some tutor. And if you can't find a tutor, just somebody who knows. You have to be open to embarrassing yourself at least to one other person, right? The reading flow skill is something you have to be able to open up to somebody else, and they can inshallah ta'ala help you. So that's the first two groups. And what I'm going to do inshallah ta'ala tomorrow is, for those of you that are already at the point where you're reading the Quran, okay, you don't sound like a professional reciter, you don't have amazing tajweed, but you can read in flow. You've even memorized a few surahs. Now you want to get to start learning to understand what it is that you're doing. I want to suggest at least a couple of things now, and I'll end, and then we'll talk about it in some more detail tomorrow, inshallah. Don't worry about vocabulary. I know that sounds crazy. So many of you had the same question. Vocabulary. How do I retain the vocabulary? How do I remember the words? There's too many words. What can you give me a list of words to memorize? And even if I try to memorize it, I forget it the next day. I know that lists are not going to help you. You're not going to memorize the vocabulary of the Quran and be able to apply it. And you're going to be sitting there, was that on the list? Allahu Akbar. That's not going to work. Don't worry about stop stressing yourself out about vocabulary. It will come. I promise you it will come, and you'll be very good at it. And actually, the vocabulary of the Quran is easier than most of the vocabulary of Arabic. If you were learning Arabic to understand the Al Jazeera network, you'd have a much harder time. But if you're learning Arabic for Quran, it's way, way easier. But your starting point is not vocabulary. Your starting point is to conquer the hardest part of Arabic. It's grammar. It's structure. And grammar is scary even for English speakers. My God, if you told somebody, I'm going to teach you English grammar, I'd rather get a root canal than learn English grammar. Grammar is not a fun thing to learn. But crazy enough, I've made a career out of making grammar fun to learn. And Arabic grammar is actually pretty mathematical and very logical and surprisingly fun to learn if you have the right approach. For any of these 10-day milestones that we have, if you have the right pathway, if you have the right course and curriculum, and if you have the right teaching method, those two things are key. You can't just have which book should I study? Books are just information. It's what method will I use to teach that book, right? The method has to be right for a student to be able to really retain their stuff. So it's not just about getting a book and going through it and you'll get it. The curriculum is important, but equally important is the teacher. If you can have a combination of those two things, you will get to your goal successfully. And that's what I recommend doing for those of you that are able to read and want to progress that way. That's what I'm hoping to do in Copenhagen as our starting point. Those 10 days in Copenhagen that I'm going to be doing on July the 13th, that I want so many of you to be a part of, especially those of you that are in Europe. That'll be your head start into Arabic, and then you continue with me part-time, right? But those of you who can't even do that, I'll be giving you other recommendations also. How do you get your 10 days in where you can get the fundamentals of the Arabic language and what in the world that means, and how do you build from there on? But I can guarantee you one thing. For every one of these 10-day challenges that I'm mentioning, every single one of these days is going to change something in how you understand the Quran. Every single one of these days. I was in one of these. And when I was in one of these as a student, after day one, I'm standing in prayer in the Fatiha. I'm like, that's Rafa. That's Nasab. And you don't know what that means yet. And that's cool. That's Jar. And I was like, whoa, I'm starting to get it. Something's happening. At least I'm not thinking about, hey, that part of the carpet is going this way and this one's going that way. It's not symmetrical. Wait, does that look like a face? Allahu Akbar. When you don't know what's going on in the prayer, you concentrate on weird things, right? But we can actually learn some pretty good Arabic, and Arabic that will immediately impact the way we engage our prayer. So I'm hoping to cover some of that with you inshallah ta'ala tomorrow. I hope you guys benefited from this discussion. Barakallahu li wa lakum. Keep throwing your questions at me as the time progresses. I'm not addressing every one of them as the sessions go, but by the time I'm done with this series, I'll have addressed all of them inshallah. Jazakumullahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Okay, bye.